One of the questions that I get a lot is what is somatic therapy from clients, from other professionals, folks that I interact with in fitness and spaces where we talk about the intersection of our physical health and mental health. Quite simply, somatic therapies are a wave of therapies. They're newer. They work with our body's role in our mental health and resilience. Specifically, there's a part of our nervous system called our autonomic nervous system. It's responsible for keeping us alive. It's also responsible for our survival responses, fight, flight, freeze. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a future video and a couple of future videos in terms of what is actually happening in our bodies during trauma or a prolonged stressful event and how somatic therapy helps with that. And then we're also going to talk about just understanding the relationship between our mental health and our bodies. Again, those are coming up. But again, just sort of starting out these videos, I wanted to get a sense of where we're at, get some definitions on the board, right? What is somatic therapy? A somatic therapy is any therapy that works specifically with the body. There are a number of them. The first one I was trained in, that's primarily where I draw from, is called somatic experiencing. It was developed by Dr. Peter Levine. And really the idea when we're talking about working with integrating somatic therapy, maybe in with your talk therapy, is we want to make sure that we're addressing the person as a holistic being. I'm addressing all of you, right? Because over the past several decades, research has shown us again and again that our bodies are much more involved in things that we used to consider just kind of in your head, right? We used to think of your anxiety, your depression as being primarily, maybe even entirely located behind your eyes and between your ears. And we're seeing now that that's not the case. More and more I'm hearing in just kind of like popular vernacular and as I'm poking around on the internet, people talking about things like being stuck in fight, flight, freeze response or something like this that kind of cues me into this is becoming a little bit more common. It's not super common in the area of North Carolina where I live, but you don't have to go very far to find a lot of really, really skilled practitioners that are doing this. It's not something that's many of these things. I mentioned somatic experiencing that I'm trained in. I went through my 3-year training with everything from body workers, massage therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, obviously psychologists and therapists of different stripes from the mental health field. There was a Medicaid dentist who went through the training with me. Any number of different kinds of professionals, coaches, folks who want to understand the way that our body is interacting with things like trauma, with anxiety, but then also not just that, not just on the kind of the negative pathological side of the scale, but how are our bodies involved in our resilience? And how do we, in relationships, in organizations, how do we maximize on that? How do we cultivate that? How do we help keep our bodies regulated in a way that supports our optimal functioning, not just physiologically, but emotionally and psychologically, and ultimately relationally as well. So that's a sense of what somatic therapies are. We're going to go a couple of different places with this, but if you hear that language in the future, or if maybe you or a loved one, gets referred and you hear about this and it's kind of a possibility, just to put it on your radar. There are some really, really helpful tools, especially when we're talking about things like trauma and anxiety that can be really, really beneficial for folks. So.